today, so you won't be able to see our faces. Hopefully our voices will do justice. As always, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and we'll be sure to address them at the end during our questions and answers portion of the session. This is the Life on the Israel Ride webinar. We're going to be going over a lot of details about what you'll be doing on the ride itself. If you do have any questions, please let us know. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to David Rensburg, who's going to get started.
Thanks, Sam, and welcome everyone. And the Israel Ride is just about 6 or 7 weeks away, and we're definitely looking forward to meeting everyone in Jerusalem. And really, this webinar is geared to just the last-minute information that you might do kind of get ready and what you might need to get and to buy, and then also a little bit of just what to expect for our week in together. So we're going to talk a little bit about arrival in Israel, what to expect before we start riding, go through what a typical day on the road looks like, talk a little bit about our rest day over Saturday for Shabbat, and how we have a whole communication set up for everyone, and then sort of what the end of the ride looks like. Basically just walking everyone through the week plus that we're all going to be together. So to dive right in with pre-arrival information. So the first thing is that we are going to be sending out 2 different kits for you ahead of the ride. One of them is going to be mailed by regular mail, and that will include your Israel Ride jersey, a water bottle, and a bunch of labels for you to label your bike, your luggage, your helmet, basically anything that we move or that your bike that you move for you on a regular basis throughout the ride. We want to make sure your name is on it so that it always gets to the right place. So we'll be sending you all sorts of labels, as well as the water bottle and jersey as your official swag for the ride. That should be all arriving at our offices in the first couple days of October, and we'll ship those out shortly afterwards. The second piece that we will send to everyone is what we call our arrival pack, and that is going to be emailed out also in the beginning of October, and that will contain our packing list, just so you have that once more, plus the staff cell phones and a bit of a detailed schedule for the opening couple days of the ride, so you have that ahead of time. And just look for that in one of our upcoming emails that we send out to everyone. The big question that we often get is, what do we have to bring? How much do we have to bring? And I want to stress that everyone should consider packing lightly. First of all, we're on our bikes for a good chunk of the riding days, and very often people will say that they've overpacked their non-riding clothes. So you don't quite need as many changes of clothes as you might think. We very often will arrive at our hotels around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and people will typically reuse outfits for the evening. Kind of just generally things to bring are obviously bike clothes. We recommend that you bring probably 2 or 3 pairs of shorts, plus 2 or 3 pairs of 2 or 3 jerseys, one of which hopefully is the Israel Ride one that we're going to be mailing to you, as well as other, gloves, socks, etc. You do need to bring a helmet, even if you're renting a bike. We do ask you that you bring your own helmet, just so that for fit and comfort, but also because we don't actually have helmets that come with our bikes. Other than that, we recommend obviously some non-bike clothes, but also toiletries, any kind of Jewish ritual items that you might want, and then credit card and cash. We pretty much everywhere in Israel will accept American credit cards, and depending on your card, you might have a kind of foreign transaction fee, but they're pretty much accepted everywhere. And we will be having some items for sale that will take American dollars. And if you want to have shekels on you, which we definitely recommend. Some people will go, exchange those ahead of time. I've typically found that the fastest and kind of best exchange rate is often just to use your ATM card at one of the ATMs in the airport or at the first place you get to in Israel to take out some Israeli money. The one thing to remember is that we're moving around every day, and you have to move your bag each day. We have a truck that will move all 180 or so riders' luggage from one hotel to the other, but you'll very often have to move it to your room or back down to the lobby the next morning. Sometimes we're not in simple high-rise hotels. They're more kind of guest houses that are a little bit spread out, and you might have to roll your bag a little bit. So definitely bring a bag that you can move yourself pretty easily on a regular basis. We also recommend just one piece of full luggage per person. That and specifically if you have a laptop, which is again another question we often get, we ask that you pack it snugly inside your bag, properly protected by your own clothes. And if you are coming for a very long extended stay and you might have a second bag that you won't need at all on the ride, we can keep those on the truck the entire time so that you won't see it until a lot and you don't have to deal with moving an extra bag in and out of every hotel, which is also beneficial for our team, one less bag that we have to move if it's not going to be in use. We do have a full packing list online, and like I said, we'll also be sending it out as part of our arrival pack, and it should also have been in the previous mailing that everyone received when they registered with our rider handbook. But there's definitely online is the full version that you can look at, and certainly if there's any specific questions about packing and whatnot, we can address that. Just to look at some of the questions here, the shipment that we're going to be sending out on October 7th or 8th, so I think everybody should receive it in time. We do have a list of everyone's flights. If for some reason someone is leaving very early, we'll just make sure to bring it to Israel. One of the reasons we do send this out is because it's with the amount of people that we have, for us to bring all this to Israel and deal with customs, it's actually extremely difficult to get all of this to Israel, and therefore we do rely a little bit on everyone to bring their own items. And I'll get to some of the other questions that were asked as we continue going through all of this. So arrival and orientation. Our orientation is going to be in Jerusalem. I'm going to go through a little bit about what those first couple days are going to look like. So first of all, when everyone's flying into Ben Gurion International Airport, we help you deal with your bike in a couple different ways, and here's just general information about getting yourself and your bike to Jerusalem. So the first thing is that you have to claim your bags and clear customs on your own, how we do at any kind of normal flight that you might take. For those who are arriving during kind of main and some of the major flights that come from the States that we know we have a lot of people on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday before the ride, we're going to have someone at the airport greeting everyone. And that person can just generally give assistance, but also if you have a bicycle, we'll specifically be able to help you. In general, all of our riders, regardless of when you land, time of day, or how early, can use a bicycle storage company that we contract with. These guys are 24/7, and we will be emailing out as part of the arrival pack the exact contact information. And basically, once you clear customs, if our greeter is not there to assist you, you can just call this company, and they will have a van that's usually nearby, and they'll say, oh, meet us outside of this specific door, and they'll take your bicycle box from you. And they will store all of our bicycles until Tuesday, and then we truck all of them to our hotel in Jerusalem. And this means that if you're coming earlier and you are planning on doing your own touring or even just hanging out in Jerusalem, you don't have to worry about traveling around Israel with a very large bicycle box, which is almost impossible to kind of put into a cab in Israel. And that means that you only have to get yourself and your luggage to Jerusalem, or if you're going somewhere else ahead of time. Specifically for getting leaving the airport and getting to Jerusalem, there's two main options. There are shared vans, which take about 10 people at a time and make multiple stops in Jerusalem, which is a system called Sheirut, and the company for Jerusalem is called Nesher. It's about $17 per person. Our hotel, if you're going to our hotel, will probably be at the end of one of these routes, so it might be a little bit of a roundabout way to drop off multiple people, but it's certainly the cheapest option to get to Jerusalem. If you'd like to take a private cab, those are also available depending on the time of day that you land. They're between $72 and $90. There is a set fare system for airport pickups. So it's not like you have to haggle with the cab drivers. It's all kind of a pretty simple above-the-board way to just take a private cab. If people are first going to Tel Aviv or somewhere else, there is a rail link that goes to the airport. However, that does not go to Jerusalem. So really, it's the Sheirut and the private cabs are the options for getting to Jerusalem. We do have a few options available for people who are coming in early. So first of all, our ride officially begins on Tuesday, and Tuesday night is the first hotel that is covered by the ride itself. For those that are arriving early, and generally about half of our riders will take advantage of this, you can book an additional hotel night at our hotel on Monday night or even earlier. We have blocks of rooms for about 4 days ahead of time. And our official ride hotel is called the Ramat Rachel Guest House. Ramat Rachel is a small kibbutz that is actually inside the city limits of Jerusalem, but on a little bit of the outskirts of the city. It's about an hour's walk to the old city, about a 45-minute walk to Emek Rafaim, which is one of the big kind of restaurant scenes. Not too far from some of the kind of more American neighborhoods of Talpiot, but it's a little bit out of the way from downtown. It's not, I would not in any way say that it's a centrally located hotel, but it's really great for what we need for kind of staging the opening of our ride. So if you do want to book an extra night there and you haven't yet, you can do that online on our logistics form. And then you can get single rooms, shared rooms, et cetera, and we kind of work out all of that housing for you. We also have on Monday options for folks who are coming in to do a day tour up north with JNF to explore the Carmel and some of the projects that they're doing up north, which can kind of pair nicely with our bike ride, which is going to be focusing on the southern half of the country. We also have an option to go to Pardes, which is a institution for Jewish learning with classes given in English, which is located in Jerusalem, also about a 45-minute walk from our hotel, actually. And we're going to be organizing some classes there with them. On Monday night, since we don't officially have the infrastructure of the ride fully up and running yet, we do dinner in town for those that want. We'll organize different groups of people who can choose different restaurants, and it's just kind of a good way for those riders who are coming in early to get to know each other. We have different price points and different types of cuisines, and we usually have some staff or riders who are back on multiple rides to just kind of join the riders. So just a good way to meet new and old riders and just to share stories. So we definitely, if you're available, recommend that you join us on Monday for dinner. Tuesday is our orientation day itself. And there's a lot going on that day. And we'll send out the full schedule closer to the ride, but just the key elements are that part of our orientation day, there's three things that everyone needs to do. One is just come through our check-in table where we kind of give you the lay of the land, make sure you're arrived. If you've earned any fundraising incentives, that's when you earn them. We actually open up that already on Monday afternoon and basically run that all day on Tuesday. The second thing that everyone has to do is figure out their bike. So as I said, on Tuesday morning, anybody who flew into the airport, their bikes will be brought early Tuesday to our hotel. and starting around 9 a.m. and going till about 4 p.m., we have our mechanics available to help everybody put their bicycles back together, and we also have test rides so that we can make sure that everything's in working order. If you're renting a bike, that's also the mechanics are also there to make sure that we have a bike that fits you, and they'll make any adjustments as necessary. If you have brought your own seat or your own pedals, they'll help put those on. And then we also have everyone who's renting bikes go on our test rides just to make sure that you're comfortable with the bike. Everyone needs to have all of their bicycle built and ready to go by 4 in the afternoon, and around 4:15 is when we start our orientation, where we go over some of the basics of the ride, introduce the various key staff and the organizations that the ride is supporting, as well as just go over our safety speech and a little bit of we go over the route options for Wednesday. All of this does not take all day to deal with your bike and to check in, so we also offer 2 different tour options. Basically, we suggest that if you're doing a tour, then the other time of the day you would be working on your bike. So we have a morning tour to the Old City. We'll have probably 2 different options with kind of for those that are kind of more new to Israel or new to the Old City, and one that's kind of going to go into a little bit more of the nooks and crannies but might miss some of the kind of key touristy spots. And then in the afternoon, if you choose to deal with your bike in the morning, you can go on a tour in the afternoon, and we'll be looking at some of the archaeological antiquities, which are actually right near the hotel where we're staying. Once we're all done with everything on Tuesday, we have kind of a dinner that evening, and Wednesday is our first riding day. And of our 5 riding days, they each have a little bit of a unique feel, but I'm going to use kind of the time here now just to go through a little bit of what is the same across all of those. Just to kind of get onto some of these questions, the Tuesday tours are really just drop-in. You don't have to sign up in advance. We have enough space for everyone based on how we kind of know people tend to divide themselves up. So it's really up to everybody to determine which tour they want to go on and when they want to take care of building and assembling their bicycles. Okay, so in terms of your day on the ride, each morning pretty much starts the same way, where everyone has to bring their luggage down to the lobby of each hotel. There's usually a staging area that will have signs all set out for it. We pile up all the luggage, and then we have a crew who loads them all up into a truck. Each morning we do have optional morning prayers for those that would like, and we sort of determine the flavor and nature of those prayers as we get a sense of who opts into that. We have breakfast at the hotel every morning, and then we all gather with our bikes. We have mechanics available. We often will lead stretching or encourage everyone to kind of do their own stretching early in the morning, and we then set out every morning after a bit of a launching ceremony, which involves us just making sure that we're all coordinated with the police and the crew, and also just making sure that we're all setting out as a group together. And we'll usually roll out in the different riding groups, since we have 3 different options each day, and just in terms of how we work with the police and in terms of dealing with this many riders, right from the beginning we tend to divide up already into those 3 groups each day. So just a little bit more on the riding groups, and I know my colleague Jesse Karsif has been in touch with a lot of people about specifically which group you are choosing to ride in. But our shortest group is we call Shomrim. They ride around 30 miles a day and then stop generally at lunch and do some touring in the afternoon. Our middle group is called Sofim, about 55 miles a day, and our longest and fastest group is Chalutzim, about 70 miles a day, and they tend to go out of their way to find extra hills to climb. All 3 of these groups have really great support on the road. We have a pace car in the front. We have experienced, almost semi-professional cyclists who are what we call lead riders that will be in the front and in the back, and depending on how many people sometimes in the middle just to help everyone out. We have mechanics on each route. We have a medic on each route. We have a bus in the back for SAG support, which is a cycling acronym meaning support in gear. Essentially, if you're too tired, you get to go on the bus. And we have crew who are all over the place, setting up rest stops and pit stops to give out food and water. And we have staff who are driving up and down to make sure everything's okay, and other cars with photographers and videographers. So there's lots of different crew and support on the road. And regardless of which group you choose, you'll have all of this support. The biggest support that we provide, especially since we're riding through the desert, is our rest stops and our other stops during the day. So each route option will have rest stops kind of tailored to the needs of that group. So if you're on a faster route and a longer route, we'll be able to usually it's a little bit more distance between rest stops. But our rest stops are all stocked with water, energy drink, lots of dried fruit and nuts and power bars and things like that. We have bathrooms available at our rest stops, which when we're in more kind of urban or suburban areas usually will be real full bathrooms. When we're more in the desert, we kind of set up sort of like a portable porta potty type system, but there is kind of a private bathroom always available. And we do ask that all riders stop at rest stops. This is something that we have to do because of our police permits, and it's also just a good way to make sure that we're all riding not too spread out, especially since it's a foreign country and a lot of people are not that familiar with where we are. We use the rest stops to try and bunch up each of the 3 riding groups to keep them somewhat together, although once we're on the road, each riding group tends to spread out as people go at their own pace. In between some of the rest stops, if it's a especially long stretch or if there's a tough climb, we might have a pit stop, which is really just a car on the side of the road with a little bit of food in the back of their trunk. It's not full shade and full bathrooms in the same way, and it's really just an optional stop for those that need. And finally, one of our rest stops serves as lunch. It's usually more of a extended stop. We do a catered lunch buffet each day, or sandwiches or something like that, and taking into account all sorts of allergies and food needs that people have given us. And there's almost always multiple options so that everybody really can find what they need for lunch. And as part of all of this, at the rest stops and at lunch, we have kind of our last bit of crew support is that we have professional educators and tour guides who are joining us. And at many of the stops, we'll have somebody speak about what we're seeing, what we're riding through, some of the projects of the Arava Institute and Chazon as they might relate to what we're looking at. Really just a way to experience Israel allowing you to experience Israel in a different way, not just by seeing everything up close and personal on your bike, but really getting to learn about the land that we're actually riding through. In terms of switching between riding groups, there are multiple nights where we're separated at hotels based on which riding group we're in. So on the first day, you can really go in choosing whichever you want, but then days 2 and 3 kind of are a unit, and days 4 and 5 are a unit. So if you do need to switch, you do have a couple of options during the ride to do so in the evenings. So kind of let us know, and we'll make sure to house you appropriately the next night. Although if you do know which group you're in, or if it might have changed since when you may have registered, definitely email us to let us know, because the more we can plan that ahead of time to make sure that you're booked in the right hotel based on your riding group, makes it easier for us. In terms of kind of how many hours of riding each day, each group tends to arrive between 2 and 4 in the afternoon to the hotels. Hotels in Israel, I'll kind of just move on to the next slide here. Generally, we're not allowed into hotels until 3 p.m. Check-in in hotels is just not available until 3 p.m. So we're on the road until then. we sort of take advantage of where we are with kind of the rest stops and education and lunch, and the day does stretch out to kind of fill that time so that we don't arrive at our hotels until about 3 o'clock. Active cycling time, if it's about 55 miles a day for Tzofim, it's usually around about 5 to 6 hours a day of active cycling time. When we arrive at our hotels, we ask that everyone take anything they might need for the evening that's on their bike off, whether you have your wallet in there, your contact lens solution, your phone. Very often our bikes are stored and guarded for the night where we don't have regular access. When you show up, we'll have a whole welcome desk that will have everyone's room keys, and the luggage has been either laid out in the lobby for everyone to take, or in some cases we have porters already bring it to people's rooms. And each evening we then have dinner, followed by an evening program which includes kind of a mandatory route briefing for the next day, where we go over the various options and timing, as well as some education and optional programming after that. I just want to back up 1 second here to kind of go in a little bit more to the Shomrim. The Shomrim, as I said, typically just ride till lunch and then tour in the afternoon. They're the only group that does not fully ride point to point from Jerusalem to a lot. The other two will do that. And instead, the Shomrim in the afternoons will go tour and experience various parts of Israel that are near where we're riding. And we try and balance this between some kind of classic touristy options and some things that are a little bit off the beaten path. So on Wednesday, that group will explore a Roman period cave system in Beit Guvrin. On Thursday, they'll meet and with various people in the Israeli-Gaza border communities. On Friday, they do a very kind of classic desert hike, which is what's in the picture right here. On Sunday, they get to do an extended tour of Kibbutz Keturah, which is the home of the Arava Institute, and meet with students and learn about some of the research there. And on Monday, the Shomrim take borrowed off-road bikes and ride around Timna, which is a kind of geological park with some archaeology. It's not mountain biking. It's not anything treacherous or dangerous. It's just on unpaved roads, so we make sure to give everyone kind of sturdy bikes for that. But basically, these tours, we try and just kind of balance what we hope are interests of all of our different riders to kind of round out the day. And the tours will very often involve taking a bus to these locations and then a bus at the end of the night to the hotel. Just going to run through a couple more questions before we go on to the next section here. In terms of hotels, we don't need to tip at the hotels itself. We usually do a bit of a solicitation for tips to tip the crew that are going to be there kind of supporting the ride, from kind of moving your luggage and setting up rest stops, etc. So we do have a bit of a solicitation to tip our kind of hired crew, but not the hotels itself. You do not need to bring a bike lock. There's every place that when we're at rest stops, we're always there with our bikes, and we're usually in the middle of nowhere. And in the evenings at hotels, we always arrange for either locking up the bikes in a room or some kind of security system. Daytime temperatures can certainly vary. There tend to be chillier in Jerusalem, which is up in the mountains, and definitely getting hotter as the ride progresses. But even in the desert, this time of year, usually it's mid-80s. It can hit low 90s if it's an especially hot day, but it's also a very dry heat. There's tends to be almost no humidity and no rain. I say tends to be because we certainly have had days where it will downpour, but a downpour will last about 20 minutes and then just be done, especially in the desert. We do have ice at the rest stops when possible, especially when we're in those hotter days. And in terms of the touring, every group has their educators, but these specific items that the Shomrim do are really just for that group. The exception of that is everybody does get to visit Kibbutz Keturah, which is the home of the Arva Institute, and spend some time there. The Shomrim just get a bit of more of an extended day there. But we definitely recommend people choose their group based on their cycling ability. The Shomrim as a whole, because they're riding fewer miles, tend to go slower. So there are certainly some people who decide that they really want to do one of these, but if you're a real speedster rider, you tend to not have the best day just because you end up being in a slower paced group. So it's just something to think about. Let's see. In terms of the off-road biking, I want to stress that it's not mountain biking. It's really just a bike with thicker tires, upright handlebars. It's very flat. It's essentially on roads that are just not paved, and therefore we don't want people to be bringing their road bikes on. If there are specific concerns, then we can certainly address that, and you don't have to necessarily join, and instead probably just sit tight for a good chunk of the morning that we do that little bit on for the Shomrim, but we can certainly talk about that offline and make accommodations. So I think the last question on here that I haven't gotten to is the hotels and Wi-Fi, and for that I'm going to move on to the next section and talk about communication in general, and for that I'm going to hand this over to Sam Schauer from the Friends of the Arava Institute, who will speak about it and also be helping to coordinate some of that from the road as well. Sam, go ahead.
Thank you, David. Before I get started, I just want to apologize beforehand. I am a little under the weather, so if I have to take a break to cough, I apologize. But yeah, so to get started, we do recommend I'm going to start with the internet and then go up to the phones because we have some questions about the Wi-Fi. But we do definitely recommend renting either a USB modem or a Wi-Fi hotspot through our partner Amigo. Many of the hotels do have internet, but they will charge you for access. And some of the kibbutz guest houses do have free internet, but again, that won't be available every night of the ride. So we do have two different options for wireless internet devices. You can either rent a USB modem at $6 a day. Basically what that means is if you're using a laptop, this will probably be your best bet. You could just plug it into your USB drive and then it will allow you to connect to the internet. However, if you have multiple devices, you will need a different USB modem for each device. Or if you have a device like an iPad or tablet that does not have a USB drive, you will not be able to use this device to connect to the internet. So if you are planning to bring a tablet or multiple devices that you want to be connecting at the same time, we recommend renting a Wi-Fi hotspot, which runs you $10 a day. And basically that's just a little Wi-Fi box that you can connect all of your devices to wirelessly, which will allow you to use your iPad or other tablet with the internet. So those are your internet options. And then just looking at the phones that are available, we also would recommend renting either if you want to bring your own smartphone, you can rent just the SIM card. We do have a number of different plans available, but I'm just going to talk about the couple that we recommend. If you want to rent a phone, you have no need to bring your own phone with a SIM card. You can just rent a flip phone. It's $50 for 2 weeks, so that will cover the full length of the ride and even a little bit extra room either before or after if you're planning to come early or stay late. That will give you 350 voice minutes, which we find to be more than enough for any riders. If you do have some concerns about how limited that is. There are unlimited options, but again, we do find that 350 tends to be enough minutes. And then again, we also have a SIM card option, which does include unlimited voice, text, and data. And that runs you about $5 a day. So as you can see, the ride is a week long. If you're going to be there for, let's say, 10 days, both the flip phone and the SIM card option would be the same price. So you would say, well, why would I get a flip phone? I just want to point out that if you do get the flip phone as opposed to the SIM card, then Amigo will be, their customer service will kind of have full support for the rental phone. However, if you just get your SIM card through them and you're having problems connecting it with your unlocked American phone, Amigo will not provide any customer support in those issues. That will all have to go through your American wireless provider or Canadian or whatever it may be. So in that, for those cases, we definitely recommend getting the flip phone unless there's a specific reason why you want to have the SIM card, like you know, using your wireless data, whatever it may be. It looks like we do have a couple questions about the phones, but I'm just going to leave those for the end, and we can come back during our Q&A section and talk about that in a little more detail. What I'm going to talk about now is David did a job of covering the daily routine of the ride, and once you're back at your hotel or wherever you may be staying that night, we do have some resources available to you to communicate back to your donors and other friends and family you may have that aren't with you on the ride. So without going into too much detail here, because we'll have kind of a more information later about the specific available to you, we will have some laptops provided. So if you're thinking about bringing a computer just for email purposes, I would say you're probably going to be fine just using our laptops to be able to communicate back to your donors. And it's actually all set up through the participant center that hopefully you have been using up to this point in your fundraising. So as long as your participant center is set up before you go to Israel, we'll actually have all of those contacts imported into our communications from the road system. So that way you won't have to import new contacts. We'll have some template emails set up for you, just kind of generally describing what you did each day. So you can import those into your emails, add a little personal touch, and then send it off to your donors just so that they stay in the loop. Additionally, we'll have some social media posts, blog posts, and a few other types of digital communications that you can send to your donors, or you can blog as well. And then we also have some postcards that we'll be providing for you, postage included, that you can send back to friends and family and donors. And a lot of people appreciate seeing those postcards from the road. And they will actually have pictures of past Israel rides on them relating to the activities that you did each day. So these are all great, fun, fast ways to both thank your donors who are following your ride and also solicit more fundraising along your ride. I know that a lot of you are trying to meet your goal before the ride starts, but I just wanted to reiterate that you do have actually until the end of this year to meet your minimum. So we definitely encourage to continue your fundraising while you're on the ride and even after you return. So yeah, if you do have any questions about either of those sections, please type them into the chat box below. And with that, I'm just going to pass it off back to David to the presentation.
Thanks. So the last two quick things we want to talk about are just the other 2 days that are on our ride that are not on our on bikes, and that is our day off over Shabbat for Saturday and closing in Eilat. So Shabbat on the ride is definitely a day of rest, whether people kind of on their kind of regular weekly basis observe Shabbat in their own way. We've definitely heard that everyone appreciates the day of rest after 3 days of riding through the desert. And we offer all sorts of options, whether people are kind of traditionally observe Shabbat or not, that hopefully appeal to a wide variety of our riders. On Friday evening, we welcome in Shabbat, really generally just coming together as a community since we've been separated on the road for a couple of days in different riding groups. So it's just kind of nice to see everyone together again. And we offer different service options, many of which are throughout the weekend that are put on by the riders and different people volunteering for some of the leading roles there. And we have a bit of a festive Friday night dinner in our hotel. On Saturday, it's a very low-key day. Pretty much everything is optional. In the morning, we have traditional services, but also we have yoga. One of our tour guides will lead a walk around the town that we're staying in. And throughout the day, we'll also have a time to learn more about the Arva Institute and hear from some of the alumni of their programs, and then learn more about Chazon's work as well. But generally, it's just a really great, relaxing day. There's a pool, there's a kind of sauna type of area, and really everyone just does their own thing and enjoys. It's a really lovely hotel that we stay in. The end of Shabbat is marked by a ceremony called Havdalah, and for that we actually go from our hotel to the kind of what makes Mitzvah Ramon, where we are for the weekend, a place which is that it's perched on the edge of a large machtesh, which is, everyone will learn more about it, but the kind of basically it's a big hole in the ground that's not quite a crater, and we do Havdalah kind of overlooking this whole desert expanse as the sun goes down to mark the end of Shabbat. And we do ask everyone join us for that just because it's a really great community moment. And then from there we go right into our briefing for the next day and then all have dinner. The main hotel that we're using in Mitzvah Ramon is called the Ramon Inn, and we actually we overflow into another hotel as well called Ramon Suites, but everyone will still come together for kind of the main parts of the programming over the weekend, but we will be, just given the size of the ride, most likely using 2 different hotels. And then finally, after Shabbat, we get back on our bikes. We ride Sunday and Monday, and on Monday we arrive in Eilat. We actually all 3 riding groups come together for lunch on our last day of riding, and we use that lunchtime to take team photos or photos of everybody from specific communities, and have one final large descent into Eilat, where we then all gather and with kind of a police escort do a group ride through the city of Eilat to our hotel, which is really the southernmost tip of Israel, right before the border with Egypt. And we have a bit of a beach party. We have our mechanics available to help everyone who brought their bikes pack them back up with your bicycle carrying boxes, having miraculously made it from Jerusalem to Eilat while you weren't looking. And all of that sort of takes place on Monday afternoon. If you have a rental bike, that's when you return it. And then we have a real festive dinner, a closing ceremony, a little bit of a open bar party thing going on after that. And that really is the close of the ride. On Tuesday is really after the ride is our departure or travel day. And many people opt to go to Petra that day. We offer a group rate to go either and do a 1-day out and back trip to Petra, or what we generally recommend is a 2-day trip to Jordan with an overnight outside of Petra. So that leaves early Tuesday morning. And many people on Tuesday just take time to enjoy the 3 different pools at the hotel and the beach across the street and the spa and whatnot. Or if people want, they can go further into town for there's scuba diving options, and there's a mall and all sorts of other things, kind of a touristy boardwalk. And when people are ready to start heading home, it's up to everybody to take a cab to the Eilat airport. It's about a $5 cab ride, and the hotel can just help order cabs. It's a major hotel, so there's generally cabs just waiting. And everybody is booked on a domestic flight from Eilat back up to Tel Aviv, which the ride provides. If you haven't filled out your logistics form yet, that's also where we ask everyone to tell us which specific domestic flight you'd like to be on, and we'll book anything Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday after the ride for you. If people want, they can also take a bus up to Jerusalem or some other areas of the country, but we will coordinate all of that, and you can just let us know what your preference is on the logistics form. For those that are bringing a bike, it's sort of a bit of the reverse of the beginning of the ride, where we truck all of the bicycles now repacked in their carrying boxes back to the airport, and that same company that we use when you arrive will hold on to all of those bikes. We provide them with a list of everyone's departures, so that they're ready to give you your bike right outside of the terminal before you go in to check your luggage. So it works pretty seamlessly, and we'll make sure to give everybody the information of exactly how to pick up their bike before they fly out. But it, again, means that if you want to spend some time after the ride in Israel or going to Jordan or something like that, that you don't have to worry about your bicycle. It'll be waiting for you at Ben Gurion, so that when you're ready to fly out of Israel, you can just pick it right back up. So that is the extent of the presentation for today. And certainly we have about 10 more minutes or so before we call this to end at 4, and I'm happy to take more questions. Folks want to continue to ask questions in the chat box, and also just make sure to run through and see if there's anything else that we missed. We have all sorts of tape and other fasteners to seal bike boxes. Just a note about bike boxes, about half of our riders will fly with kind of a hard shell case that has clasps and straps and whatnot to seal it all up. And about half will use a large cardboard box. Generally, if you go to a bike shop and ask them to help pack up your bike, they tend to have all sorts of boxes lying around from bikes that they've, new bikes that they got shipped into the store. They'll usually help pack it up, and it's a pretty sturdy cardboard box that can certainly make it both ways on 2 planes. Pretty much, I would say 75% of the bikes that go through Ben Gurion, when you're flying out, they will always ask what's in the box. About 75% of the time they will open it. Usually, if they're going to force you to open up a taped cardboard box, their agents there will have what to help you reseal it. If you're flying out with a bike, we definitely recommend kind of giving the full suggested 3 hours before your flight at the airport. It will usually take a little bit more time to make it through security if you have a bike.
Just to answer Shalom and Mark's questions about the recording, yes, this presentation is being recorded. As soon as it ends, we'll email, or not as soon as then, sorry, as soon as we have the recording up online, we will email out a link to that. I do just want to point out, we actually had a writer point out to us today that some of the recordings went down. So I am working to get those back up and available for you guys. So if you go to the recording page right now, actually the only one that you'll be able to listen to is the Founders Call. But I definitely would recommend listening to it. So if you haven't heard it yet, you can still access that. And you can also still access the slides of the past 2 presentations. I just am working to get the actual recordings back up. But this one will definitely be available, even if we haven't gotten the other ones up yet. And again, I'll notify you all once everything is available.
Just to catch up on some of these other questions, when they do the kind of opening of luggage, it's always right in front of you. They have a whole section at the airport where if they pull people out of line to inspect their luggage, they do it right there. Sometimes they'll just kind of open up a box a little bit, put in a wand just to kind of, scan for whatever they're scanning, and that's it. Once they see it's a bicycle, they very often don't make you take every little thing out and pack it back up. Everything's pretty snug in there, and they tend to be pretty good about it. Especially there's our ride, and there's another ride that is happening about half a week later. There will be a lot of bicycles flying through Ben Gurion. They tend to kind of know that there are bikes coming in and out. I believe that global entry is not part of the Israeli customs and security system. They have their own specific security protocols that I'm pretty sure that global entry does not kind of give you a fast lane in Israel in the same way it does in the US, although I will also say that I don't have global entry, and therefore I'm not 100% sure of that. But I don't really remember seeing signs about it. Any other questions? People certainly should feel free to type in. I also just want to say that a lot of the information about route options, hotels is on our website, and it's also in the handbook that was mailed out to everyone. We do have on the itinerary page of our website a bit of a schedule for the orientation days, and you can also then look at each of the route options and the elevation charts for the 3 route options for each of the 5 cycling days, so you can get a sense of where we're going and kind of what the terrain looks like. And also information about our hotels and some of this kind of just general life on the road is also expanded on a little bit more on our website, and we certainly encourage you to look there. So for donations, the way the fundraising works, and we went into this in much more detail in another webinar, which, as Sam said, we'll be able to view shortly once he gets them back up. But the proceeds from the fundraising is split between Chazon and the Arava Institute, with the Arava Institute receiving 70% of the proceeds and Chazon 30%. And again, more information about all of that is on the website. The riding groups are really just separated by riding pace. It's our way of trying to make the ride accessible to more people and also make it so that everybody can really enjoy the pace of their group. One of the differences between this ride and maybe some other rides that people have done is that we really have police with us for most of the ride, or we certainly have specific permits because of the Israeli police, and we need to somewhat stay together and can't just spread out over an open course. So because of that, we split up by riding pace so that each of the 3 groups can ride within a couple of miles per hour of each other, but it helps us so that we don't have a spread from 10 miles an hour to 16 miles an hour in the same group, which would force us to spread out a lot. Adam, I'm happy to talk to you a little bit more about the mountain biking offline. I don't want to go into that in too much more detail right now.
And along those lines, if any of you do have any more specific questions or more personal questions you don't want to bring up here, as always, this is Sam Shower. I'm available by phone. You can give me a call on my cell anytime, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And my number is 617-780-0796, and I'll type that into the chat box now as well. And just a heads up, we just have a couple more minutes, guys, and then we're going to have to go. So if you do have any more questions, please type them now.
just to answer Barry's question here, everything is pretty informal with us. We have the whole run of our hotel on Shabbat, so people, some people get a little bit fancier for Shabbat, some people not. If you're inside the hotel just lounging around, women certainly don't have to wear skirts. If people choose to go to some of the synagogues in town, they're almost all Orthodox synagogues, and in that case, we would certainly recommend wearing a skirt. But generally on the ride, that's not a concern. Although we certainly will stress, especially kind of life out on the road and in the desert, that we should be generally concerned with modesty in and around each other. Usually that's the biggest concern is when we're dealing with issues of going to the bathroom on the road. All of the food that we provide is kosher. All the hotels in Israel have kind of kosher kitchens through the Israeli rabbinate, and all of the food that we buy and serve is as well for the rest stops and the lunches.
Great. Well, if there's no more questions, I think we'll let you guys go. This has been a great 1-hour session. Even though this is our last webinar of the series, by no means is it the end of our communication before the ride. Definitely be on the lookout for our emails. And again, if any of you do have any questions or concerns about anything at all, I'm really here as your resource, so feel free to reach out to me, 617-780-0796. Looks like a couple of people are typing, but most of those are just thank yous. And thank you all very much for joining us. We had a great turnout for this webinar. And I hope you're all looking forward to the ride in October. I know I am excited to meet you all. So have a good one, Shana Tova, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.